You've seen them on postcards. Maybe you've even pulled over to snap a photo of one yourself. Covered bridges just feel special, quiet, scenic, a little mysterious. But have you ever actually wondered, why are they covered? I mean, it's a bridge. Why the roof? Turns out there's a reason, and it's a pretty clever one. So yeah, they're certainly charming, but covered bridges were never just about looks. In this video, we're going to unpack the surprisingly practical reason they were built this way, the impressive engineering hidden underneath, and why people today are still kind of obsessed with them. Covered bridges are more than just photo ops, and they definitely weren't just a phase in design. They were a solution, and this is their story. So let's jump right into it. Why did they build bridges with roofs on them in the first place? One word: wood. In the 1800s, steel and concrete weren't options for most communities, but wood, it was cheap, it was local, and it was everywhere. You could harvest it, haul it, and build with it right there in your own town. But wood has a pretty big problem. It doesn't like weather. Sounds kind of ridiculous, right? I mean, trees literally grow outside. But once you cut them down, dry them out, and turn them into neat little boards, they suddenly get a lot more sensitive. Exposure to rain and snow causes swelling, shrinking, cracking, and rot. Sunlight dries them out. Mold and insects move in. Basically, the minute you turn wood into a bridge, nature starts trying to take it back. A wooden bridge left out in the open might last 10 or 15 years tops. And when that happens, you're tearing it down and building a new one from scratch, again and again. But if you put a roof on it and sidewalls to block the elements, now you're talking 70, 80, even 100 years of use. Here's a good example. In New England, there was a short span wooden bridge built in the 1830s, one of those quick uncovered ones. It lasted 11 years before it rotted out and collapsed. The town rebuilt it, this time as a covered bridge. This version stood for more than 90 years. And remember, these bridges weren't built for tourists with cameras. They were essential infrastructure. In many rural towns, these bridges were the only connection between farmland and the local markets. They carried livestock, harvests, and mail. They linked homes to schools and towns to the rest of the world. Losing a bridge didn't just mean taking the long way around. It could completely cut off trade, travel, or even medical care. So protecting these structures wasn't optional. It was an investment in the town's survival. Build it once, protect it, and you won't have to rebuild it every decade. Covered bridges might look like quaint little barns someone dropped over a river, but underneath, total engineering flex. The secret weapon? Trusses. These wooden frameworks, carefully arranged in patterns like triangles or arches, did all the heavy lifting. They spread out weight, absorbed stress, and turned basic lumber into a load-bearing masterpiece. You'll hear names like Town Lattice Truss, Howe Truss, and the Burr Arch Truss. They sound like Civil War generals, but they were all different ways of stacking and connecting timber to make it insanely strong. The Town Lattice Truss, for example, used crisscrossing planks to distribute pressure evenly across the whole span, like a giant wooden waffle. The Burr Arch Truss combined an arch with vertical and diagonal members to handle both compression and tension, perfect for longer spans. These weren't just random patterns. Builders were using geometry and load distribution decades before the average person even heard the word engineering. And yeah, they were doing this with hand tools, by the way. No CAD software, just math, instinct, and experience. A guy named Theodore Burr patented his arch truss in 1817, but people had already began experimenting with these designs by then. The first known covered bridge in the United States was built in 1805 over the Schuylkill River in Philadelphia. It was called the Permanent Bridge, which sounds cocky, but it actually kind of lived up to the name for nearly a century. It was so solid and well designed that it became the blueprint for dozens of other covered bridges across the country. So yeah, covered bridges weren't just sturdy, they were smart, intentional, efficient. They turned a fragile material into a reliable, long-lasting structure, all thanks to some seriously clever 19th century math. So let's talk about the vibe. Covered bridges don't just look old, they feel old. They're quiet, a little shadowy, a little mysterious. Step inside one and the sound changes. Your footsteps echo, the air cools. Time sort of slows down. Some folks even used to call them kissing bridges. In an era when public affection wasn't exactly encouraged, a covered bridge offered a rare moment of semi-privacy. No crowds, no street lamps, just enough space and shadows to lean in before life picked up again on the other side. There's even lore about local teens slowing the horse and buggy down in the middle just long enough for a quick smooch. Was it proper? Not really, but it was kind of perfect. And it wasn't just about the atmosphere, it was the sound. The clop of horse hooves on the deck boards echoing off the timber walls. It's hard to explain, but once you hear it, you don't forget it. That sound wasn't just beautiful, it was also diagnostic. Skilled bridge builders could listen to the rhythm of hooves and tell if something was off, if a board was loose, or if the structure needed repair. The bridge actually talked to you, if you knew how to listen. Today, that same sensory mix, cool shadows, rhythmic steps, the creak of old wood, it still draws people in. Covered bridges are basically emotional cheat codes. They show up in Hallmark movies, engagement shoots, tourism ads, and yep, the bridges of Madison County basically build an entire plot around one. They're functional, sure, but they're also emotional. Even if you don't know their backstory, you step inside one and you feel like you know there is a backstory. Today, fewer than 1,000 covered bridges remain in the US, and yet the obsession is very real. People build entire road trips around these things. There are covered bridge festivals, fan groups, collectors maps, even official trail guides that chart dozens of bridges across states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Vermont, and others. One of the most famous? The Ashtabula County Covered Bridge Festival in Ohio. Tens of thousands of people show up every fall, not just to see the bridges, but to celebrate them with food trucks, crafts, parades, and guided tours. And of course, there's Instagram. The hashtag Covered Bridge has over 300,000 posts and counting. Foggy mornings, fall leaves, engagement shoots. These bridges have become part of the aesthetic language of cozy, rustic escape. Some people make it a mission to visit every covered bridge in their state. Others fixate on just one, coming back every season to document it like an old friend. And it's not just a niche thing anymore. Covered bridges have become part of regional tourism strategies. Local governments promote them. Small towns protect them. Bed and breakfasts, diners, gas stations, they all benefit from the extra traffic. Covered bridges don't just connect one side of a river to the other. In a lot of places, they connect past to present and tourists to local economies. Because in a world that's fast, digital, and disposable, a quiet little wooden bridge that's been standing for 150 years feels like something worth stopping for. Keeping a covered bridge around isn't as simple as throwing up a few fresh boards and calling it a day. These things take work, and not just to keep them standing, but to keep them right. In some towns, when a bridge gets damaged by flooding or fire, they rebuild it using the original blueprints, hand tools, peg joints, timber framing. It's restoration with reverence, because doing it the old way means something. Other communities have gone to incredible lengths to save them. Some bridges have been lifted, moved, even fully relocated just to keep them safe from development or decay. In 1998, the US government launched the National Historic Covered Bridge Preservation Program, a nationwide effort to document, restore, and protect these bridges as part of our shared cultural heritage. Grants were given, historians got involved, and suddenly, these old wooden crossings weren't just quaint, they were nationally recognized artifacts. Here's the really wild part. Some of these bridges are still in use today by actual cars and trucks. The Cornish-Windsor Bridge between New Hampshire and Vermont is the longest wooden covered bridge in the United States, and it still carries traffic daily across the Connecticut River. The Sachs Covered Bridge in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, once used by both Union and Confederate troops, is still in operation today. The Hogback Bridge in Iowa, not just a tourist draw for fans of the bridges of Madison County, but also still rated for vehicular use. These are not just museum pieces, they're working parts of American infrastructure, older than your grandparents, and still earning their keep. So why go to all that trouble for an old wooden bridge? It's because they're not just structures, they're stories. Every scratch, every board, every creak underfoot is a link to the people who built it, crossed it, kissed under it, and kept it going. These bridges prove something we forget in a world of constant upgrades. Beauty and function don't have to be opposites. Old can still be strong, and that if you build something the right way and take care of it, it can last for generations. So yeah, covered bridges are beautiful, but they weren't built to be beautiful. They were built to solve a problem. How do you stretch a fragile material over a raging river? Keep it strong, keep it standing, and keep it from falling apart every time it rains. And the answer they found? You cover it, you protect it, you take care of it. That's why they lasted, and that's why they still do. These bridges are reminders that craftsmanship matters, that engineering can be elegant, that some of the smartest things we ever built were also the simplest. And maybe that's what we're drawn to now. Not just the structure, but the mindset. Build things well, take care of them, let them last. If this kind of deep dive into forgotten history and surprising stories is your thing, go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and drop your favorite covered bridge moment in the comments. We've got more curiosity coming.